How's it going? This is Coach Harvey here at Rising Dragon MMA, and today I want to go over 10 tips. 10 tips for sparring. I'm going to go over in any order. This is for people, this is your first time sparring, or you've been sparring less than a year or so. These would be great tips for you as well. Doesn't matter if it's for boxing, Muay Thai, kickboxing, or MMA. These are all going to be great tips for you to up your sparring game. Because guess what? I know sparring can be a little nervous and nerve-wracking when you first start, or in the beginning of your sparring or your training journey. You can get a little nervous sparring. But if done correctly, under the right atmosphere, under the right tutelage, sparring can actually be the most fun part of training, right? And if I always say, if you want to be that superstar, you gotta spar. All right, so that's what it is, guys. I'm gonna go over 10 tips here to help you out with your sparring. All right, tip number one is to remember why you spar. Remember your goal. Remember what you're doing here. Your goal, obviously, in sparring is to get better, to hone your skills, is to get better. Remember, sparring is not a fight. It's not a competition. When you're first getting started, it's about being comfortable. All right, so keep in mind, there is no winning or losing in sparring. All right, so don't worry about winning or losing, and keep an open mind. And remember, while you spar, your goal is to get better. Remember, this is not a fight. It's sparring. It's not a fight. It's not a competition. It's sparring, and it's another tool to help you get better. Tip number two is listen to your coach. Out there, you're nervous, but you need to stay calm, stay relaxed, stay focused, and listen to what your coach is telling you to do. In sparring, people get into habits, and it can be good habits, it can be bad habits. Typically, especially in the beginning, people make the same mistakes over and over and over and over again. So if your coach is telling you the same thing over and over and over again, make that mental adjustment. Do the best you can. Stay relaxed. Stay focused. Listen to your coach. Remember, your coach's job is to help you make the most progress in the shortest amount of time possible. Tip number three is keep your eyes on your opponent. You always want to keep your eyes on your opponent, right? You don't want to look away. You don't want to look down. You don't want to flinch when they're punching at you. There's a lot of awesome drills out there you can do to help you overcome all that, okay, defensively. And your coach should be going over those drills with you. But do your best to not to blink, flinch, turn away, look down. But most importantly, while keeping your eyes on your opponent, I know I said listen to your coach. Here's a bonus tip. When you're receiving direction, when you're receiving coaching, and someone says, hey, don't drop your hands. Don't turn around. Don't turn and say, huh, coach? Right? Always keep your eyes on your opponent. You must get in the habit of always looking at your opponent while you're sparring and taking in that advice, right? From your coach, right? As you are sparring, don't look away from flinching, looking down, closing your eyes, and most importantly, bonus tip: do not look at your coach when he is giving you directions during sparring. Tip number four is breathe. Don't tense up. Don't hold your breath. I see people all the time tensing up. They holding their breath, right? And they tire it out in the first 30 seconds, right? That's why when you work in your pad work, when you work in your shadow boxing, you should be making right? Some kind of hit, some kind of noise, that hissing sound, that snake. Get your snake on, right? You should be breathing out on each strike so you don't have to remember to breathe in. Also, you should be breathing while you're moving around. You shouldn't be super tight, super tense, holding your breath. You burning yourself out, you wasting energy, and you making yourself more tired, right? All your cardio is going out the drain. So do not hold your breath. Stay loose, stay relaxed, breathe out on all your punches, on your kicks. Tip number five. Tip number five. You're new to sparring. Keep it light, right? Your first day of sparring, you shouldn't try and take the other guy's head off, and he shouldn't be trying to take your head off. That's really counterproductive, especially your first couple times sparring, especially your first time sparring. Actually, under your first year of sparring, it could be very counterproductive, right? In the very beginning, y'all just turn into that old game, Rock'em Sock'em Robots, right? I know I'm telling my age, right? There was an old little board game with two little robots in the ring, and they used to keep their heads up, and the one that just took the shots the most, their head used to pop off, right? Do not play Rock'em Sock'em Robots, right? Keep it light, stay loose, try and flow, all right? So number five, keep it light. Tip number 6 is work on the basics. I know, right? They say the basics are boring, but the basics is what's going to keep you safe in the fight longer. And believe it or not, the basics is what wins. All right? So you got to work on the basics. Work on the stuff you work in practice. Work on the basic fundamental movements and techniques you drill on and combinations you go on in your drills and on the pads. Work on the basics. It's really easy. Get caught up watching your favorite fighter, right? Doing the fancy kick or the Floyd Mayweather dipping with his hands down. It's really fun to watch your favorite fighters do something cool and fancy, and then you get into practice and you're trying to do it and you're new to sparring. Stick to the basics. Work on your basics. Work on the fundamentals. I see people trying to get too fancy too soon. You always hear the old analogy is, right, you got to build the foundation. When you build the foundation with the basics, right, trying to do something fancy is like trying to decorate your living room and you didn't even build the foundation to the house yet, right? You're trying to pick out the curtains, right? And you guys didn't even pour the foundation yet, right? So don't pick out the curtains to the living room. Don't be decorating the man cave until you build your foundation. And building your foundation in sparring is sticking with the basics. Number seven here is work on the combos you work on in practice. The combos you work on in practice, the same combinations, the same drills, the same combos you work on in practice. You want to solidify them and get good at them, use those in sparring. Once again, I know it's easy to get in the razzle-dazzle watching your favorite fighter, but stick to the basics. Use the combos you work on in practice. It takes over 10,000 times, right, to get something down into muscle memory, right? Sometimes 10,000 times, sometimes 100,000 times, right? But the point is, stick to the combos you work on in practice. Tip number 8 is don't freak out. Guess what? You're sparring, right? One thing you got to get over is when you're sparring is you're going to get hit. With that being said, even though you're going light, you're working on the basics, you're listening to your coach, you're going to still get hit. And accidents happen. Guess what? Your eyes might get watery. Your nose might get a little bloody. That's just part of sparring sometimes, right? That isn't always the goal. But guess what? That's just bound to happen in sparring sometimes. So don't freak out. Don't get all super mad and slamming your headgear down and getting all frustrated. Don't throw a fit. Don't get all mad and charging at your opponent and all in your emotions, right? Guess what? You're going to get hit in the nose. Your eyes might tear up. Your nose might be bloody a little bit. But do not get caught up in your feelings. Don't get caught up in those feelings, right? Stay composed. Stay focused. Don't get upset. Don't freak out. Don't get all Nick and Nate Diaz on them, right? Don't get all crazy, all right? Do not freak out. Tip number 9 is don't forget defense, right? Don't forget your defense. Don't forget your defense. You get into the habit. When I was in my amateur career, right, Sensei Taiwan, Coach Taiwan used to tell me a lot, right? I was admiring my handiwork too much, right? That was a saying, right? I used to get so caught up into what I was doing to the other person, boom, 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 putting it on them, doing my thing, right? They called me Hollywood. I was out there doing my thing. I got sometimes so caught up into what I was doing, I forgot no matter what, the other person is always dangerous, right? And don't forget the defense. Don't forget that that person is always dangerous. Even though you're sparring, don't forget your defense. Don't get caught up in your own handiwork. Don't be in there admiring your handiwork. Don't hit them with the cross and look at it and say, "Oh man, did you see that?" Right? Don't get caught up in your own handiwork. Right? Remember, work on defense. Don't admire your own work. And remember, you hit them, they're going to try and hit you back. And number 10, the last awesome tip I have for you guys is pick one thing from sparring you need to work on. If you don't know what that one thing is, ask some of the more advanced students. Ask your coach, hey, coach, what's that one thing I need to work on? Go home, work on that, and make that a goal when you come back to sparring. You could be like, coach, what I need to work on? He's going to be like, man, every time you throw your cross, right, you drop your lead hand, right? Every time you throw that jab, it dips down before it comes back up. Whatever the tip is, right? There was some mistake you were making over and over and over again. So it's going to be really easy to find that one thing if you just ask your coach. Go home, work on that one thing, get that muscle memory, work on that thing, and then when you come back to spar again, make a mental note of yourself to fix that one thing. Doing that is going to actually multiplied experience that you get from sparring to help you level up sooner. So, guys, remember, sparring is fun. Sparring can be nervous. Sparring is also fun. Sparring is also necessary if you're taking your combat sports training seriously, right? So remember, have fun out there and remember these tips, guys. Let me know if you guys like these tips. Let me know in the comments what you think. If you enjoy the content, like, subscribe. It really helps me out, guys. Thanks a lot. Keep sparring. If you want to be the superstar, you got to spar.